There's a strange kind of person who walks into a room and doesn't have to say a word, you just feel them. Not because they're loud, not because they're flashy, but because there's something in their silence that demands attention. You've seen this person. Maybe you've been intimidated by them. Maybe you've admired them. But deep down, you've probably asked yourself, how do they have that kind of confidence? The kind that doesn't ask permission. The kind that doesn't perform. The kind that seems, well, dangerous. And what if I told you that Niccolò Machiavelli, not a modern psychologist, not a self-help guru, not a billionaire life coach, actually cracked the secret to that kind of confidence 5 centuries ago? Most people think of Machiavelli as a manipulator, a schemer, a cold-hearted strategist. But that's a shallow reading. What Machiavelli really understood better than most philosophers before or after him was this: confidence is not a feeling. It's a weapon, and like any weapon, it can be forged, sharpened, and wielded with terrifying precision. In fact, the most dangerous kind of confidence doesn't come from self-belief, it comes from understanding how the world works. Machiavelli didn't tell us to be confident in ourselves. He told us to be confident in our awareness of reality. And that's what makes it so potent, because when you stop trying to be liked and you start trying to be effective, everything changes.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let's get specific. Machiavelli believed that most people live in a kind of moral fantasy, but they confuse how things should be with how things are. They expect the world to reward goodness, fairness, vulnerability. But the world, as he saw it, is not a classroom, it's a battlefield. And on a battlefield, you don't survive by being nice. You survive by being prepared. So here's where the formula begins. Dangerous confidence doesn't start with affirmations, it starts with clarity. With the clarity to see people as they are, not as we wish them to be. The clarity to understand that fear is more reliable than love, that appearances often matter more than substance, and that people will betray you if it suits them unless you make betrayal cost too much. That sounds harsh. But let me ask you something. Would you rather be destroyed by your illusions or strengthened by the truth? This kind of clarity does something strange to the mind. It strips away the noise. You stop worrying about being judged. You stop needing validation. You stop hesitating. Because when you see the world as it is, your actions become surgical. Every move has purpose. Every silence has weight. Every glance is a signal. And this is where Machiavelli's second insight kicks in. Confidence is performative, but not fake. Let that sink in. You don't have to feel confident to appear confident. And appearing confident is often more important than actually being confident. Why? Because people treat you based on what they perceive, not what's real. And if you can control perception, you control reality for them. That's why Machiavelli advised rulers to behave like both a lion and a fox. You need the appearance of brute strength and the tactics of cunning. Not either or both. The lion scares people into submission. The fox avoids the traps. So how do you build this performance into your life? You start by asking, what am I projecting right now, without realizing it? Most people project insecurity. They overshare. They over-explain. They try to justify themselves. They rush to be understood. But confidence, real, dangerous confidence, does none of that. It lets people sit in uncertainty. It allows silence to do the talking. It creates more questions than answers. And that's the secret most people miss. Mystery is power. Machiavelli knew that when people don't know your full hand, they can't predict your next move. And if they can't predict you, they can't control you. So the first step in his formula is this: never let people fully understand you. Because when they don't understand you, they interpret you through their own fears. And now you're not just a person, you're their projection, their myth, their idea. And that, my friend, is leverage. But let's go even deeper. Confidence isn't just about how you move through the world. It's also about how you relate to yourself. And here's where Machiavelli made his most radical move. He said that a prince or anyone seeking power must learn to act against virtue when necessary. That doesn't mean being evil. It means being unbound. If you think you must always be honest, you will be destroyed by someone who knows when to lie. If you think you must always be kind, you will be used by someone who knows when to be cruel. So the second step of the formula is this: drop the idea that you must always be one thing. You must be many things. You must be adaptable, fluid, capable of transforming into what the situation demands. But that's not hypocrisy. That's wisdom. Because the river that bends around the rock doesn't break, it continues. And nothing is more dangerous than someone who cannot be pinned down. Now, let me ask you something uncomfortable. What virtues are you clinging to that are actually making you weak? Are you too afraid to say no? Too afraid to assert yourself? Too addicted to being seen as nice? Machiavelli would tell you that these are not virtues. They are chains, and confidence cannot grow in chains. You have to be willing to step into discomfort, to embrace contradiction, to say, yes, I can be generous, but I can also be ruthless. Yes, I can be humble, but I can also be proud. Because the world doesn't reward purity, it rewards power. And power belongs to those who are willing to do what others won't, not because they enjoy it, but because they understand it's necessary. So here's where we land for now. Machiavelli's formula for dangerous confidence is not about arrogance or narcissism or swagger. It's about clarity, performance, and adaptability. It's about seeing the world as it is, projecting what serves you, and becoming what the moment demands. And the beauty of it is, you don't have to be born with this kind of confidence. You build it, you sculpt it, you earn it not by being loud, but by being unshakable. Not through ego, but through understanding. And once you understand the forces that shape people, their fears, their desires, their illusions, you no longer need to force your way into power. You just become it, effortlessly, silently, dangerously. The confidence of shadows, why winning without being seen is the ultimate flex. There's a strange paradox at the heart of power. The more visible you make your strength, the more vulnerable you become. It sounds completely backwards, right? After all, we're taught from a young age to put ourselves out there, to speak up, to show our worth. But Machiavelli would raise an eyebrow at that advice. He'd lean in, look you dead in the eye, and ask, why would you reveal your weapons before the war begins? This is the next step in his secret formula, the part most people miss. Because dangerous confidence isn't always loud, but it doesn't always dominate the spotlight. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to stay in the shadows until you've already won. To understand this, we have to shift how we think about influence. Most people equate influence with attention. But Machiavelli saw attention as a double-edged sword. Yes, it can elevate you, but it also paints a target on your back. The more people see you, the more they judge you, fear you, envy you. And when people fear what they don't understand, they try to destroy it. Machiavelli understood that maintaining power often meant withholding visibility, in not hiding out of fear, but remaining just enough out of reach that people couldn't quite figure you out. This creates a psychological effect that is far more powerful than presence. It creates aura. And aura, once created, does more work than you ever could. Think about the people you admire most, and the ones who feel like legends. Chances are, they're not the ones constantly posting, constantly explaining, constantly trying to be seen. They're the ones who move with purpose, speak rarely, and when they do act, it feels like an event. It's the difference between someone who's everywhere all the time and someone who appears just once and changes the game forever. That's not by accident. That's design. And Machiavelli knew that to be truly dangerous, you had to create an absence that speaks louder than your presence. So here's the question: are you so visible that people feel they've already figured you out? Or are you cultivating mystery, making your presence so rare that it feels sacred when it arrives? Dangerous confidence is about knowing when to not speak, when to let people talk themselves into confusion, when to hold your silence like a sword. And this isn't just about strategy, it's about the psychology of power. Because here's the truth: when people don't know what you're thinking, they project their own fears onto you. That's why those who say less are often feared more. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He wrote that men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration. What does that mean for us? It means you can shape your reality by shaping what people think you are. And the less you give them to work with, the more power you gain over their imagination. So how do we cultivate this kind of shadow confidence in the real world? First, by detaching from the need for recognition. Not because recognition is bad, but because the more you crave it, the more control others have over you. But if you need to be seen, you'll be manipulated by those who can offer visibility. But if you can operate independently, if your self-worth is not tied to applause, you become untouchable. You remove their leverage. Second, by letting your work speak louder than your words. This is one of the quietest but deadliest forms of power. People underestimate you until your results reveal the truth. And by then, it's too late. You've already won. Lastly, by appearing when it matters most. Not constantly, not predictably, but surgically. But like a lightning strike. Your timing becomes your signature. Let's pause for a second and reflect. What would happen if you suddenly stopped trying to be seen and instead focused entirely on becoming undeniable? What if you stopped explaining yourself and let your silence do the talking? What if your absence began to haunt people more than your presence ever could? That's the level Machiavelli was playing on. And that's the level you can reach not by shouting louder, but by choosing your moments with terrifying precision. Because the person who can be invisible until it's time to strike, that person doesn't just win. They dominate without resistance, and domination without resistance. That's the highest form of power. Let's take this even further. Machiavelli believed that to maintain power, you must not only be feared, but also be misunderstood. Why? Because when people misunderstand you, they can't strategize against you. They don't know your true motives, your true goals. They fight shadows, not substance. And while they swing in the dark, you move freely. This is why Machiavelli advised rulers to cultivate both love and fear, but when in doubt, lean on fear. Not cruelty, not tyranny, but the kind of fear that comes from unknowing, from unpredictability, from the sense that you are always 2 steps ahead, even if you never say a word. So ask yourself, are you giving people too much clarity? Are you making it too easy for them to predict your next move? The most dangerous person in any room is not the one who talks the most. It's the one who listens more than they speak, who watches, who calculates, who disappears, then reappears exactly when the moment is right. And that person doesn't just inspire fear, they inspire awe. Because they've transcended the need to perform. They become something else, something timeless. And that's the final layer of Machiavelli's formula. To become a legend, you must first become a ghost. Not in the sense of vanishing forever, but in the sense of mastering the art of presence and absence, visibility and invisibility, speech and silence. Because confidence that is always seen becomes boring. But confidence that is rarely seen and never forgotten, that's the kind of power that doesn't just move people, it haunts them. The final transformation, becoming the force they can't replace, control, or ignore. Dangerous confidence isn't just a feeling, it's a transformation. And in the final phase of Machiavelli's formula, we stop talking about tactics and start talking about identity. Because the truth is, the most dangerously confident people in the world aren't just using strategies, they are the strategy. They've become something beyond imitation, beyond criticism, beyond replacement. And that kind of presence, one that others can't replicate or eliminate, isn't built overnight. It's forged in silence, sharpened in failure, and crystallized in the deepest parts of the self. Machiavelli didn't just want you to survive in a brutal world, but he wanted you to become the kind of person the world has to adjust to. So how do you become that? It starts with a brutal question: what part of you still needs permission to exist? Because if there's even one part of you waiting for approval, waiting for someone to tell you you're worthy or good enough or allowed to take up space, you're not yet free. And people who aren't free can never be truly powerful. Machiavelli understood this. He knew that real power begins when you stop asking for permission and start taking responsibility. Not in the sense of obligation, but in the sense of claiming authorship of your life. You stop blaming the world for its cruelty. You stop blaming others for misunderstanding you. You stop blaming your past. And you start saying, "This is mine." All of it. The pain, the pressure, the potential. It's mine now. This is the shift from reactive to sovereign. And sovereignty is the highest form of dangerous confidence. It means you are no longer living by the rules of the people around you, you are living by the rules you've written. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said a ruler must learn how not to be good when necessary. He wasn't glorifying evil, he was freeing us from the prison of needing to be seen as good. Because the moment you need to be seen as anything, you've given your power away. You've made your identity dependent on public opinion. But when you become sovereign, when your sense of self comes from within, not from the shifting winds of others, you become ungovernable. Not rebellious, not chaotic, but complete. And a complete person is impossible to manipulate. Now, let's be honest. This kind of confidence is uncomfortable. It means you will lose people. It means you will intimidate others. It means you will be misunderstood, judged, and sometimes even hated. But ask yourself this: would you rather be respected and feared for your fullness, or loved for a version of you that isn't real? Because the world doesn't need more likable people. It needs more dangerous people. People who refuse to betray themselves just to belong. People who walk into rooms and don't shrink. And people who don't just act with confidence, they embody it. And that embodiment comes from the deepest understanding that you are not here to be approved of. You are here to shape reality. This is where Machiavelli's philosophy becomes more than politics, it becomes spiritual. Because to live this way, you don't just need strategy. You need faith, not in a god or a system, but in yourself. Faith that you can adapt, that you can overcome, that you can hold your ground without needing applause. That even if no one understands you today, your presence will echo in ways no one can stop tomorrow. That is dangerous confidence. It's not loud. It's not desperate. It's inevitable. And once you realize that your power is not something you need to earn, but something you return to, you stop chasing it. You start radiating it. So here's the final test. Sit with this question: if everything was stripped away, your followers, your job, your reputation, what would remain? Because if your confidence is built on anything external, it will collapse. But if it's built on knowing who you are, on trusting your mind, on understanding the game and refusing to be played, then you're already dangerous. You're already free. And no one can take that from you. Not your enemies, not your critics, not even your past. That's Machiavelli's secret. Confidence isn't a trait. It's a decision to stop being ruled, a decision to become the ruler, not of people but of yourself. And when you rule yourself, you become a presence the world can't replace, can't ignore, and can never, ever control.